It is just too easy to neglect the poor. It is so easy to shut our ears to their cries, close our eyes to their misery. It is so easy to hide away in our gated subdivisions, safe and secure behind the tall fences of our homes. When we ride in our tinted cars, we do not have to mind the small boys who are tapping our windows, offering to clean our windshields in exchange for a few coins. Or those little girls who offer a few strands of sampaguita flowers just so that they can earn a few pesos for the day. It is so easy to close our hearts and minds from the sea of poverty that envelops the whole country. But when we do, God will hold us to account. This is what God said through the prophet Ezekiel with regards to the relationship of his people to the poor. Behold, this was the guilt of your sister Sodom. She and her daughters had pride, excessive food, and prosperous ease, but did not aid the poor and the needy. When we hear about the name Sodom and Gomorrah, we often think about the two cities in the Old Testament that God destroyed because of the sexual immorality of their people. But that is only half the story. The truth is, part of the reason these cities were destroyed was because they neglected to do something that was very close to the heart of God. In this passage in Ezekiel, we find out that the sons and daughters of Sodom had pride. They had much more food than they needed, and they were very prosperous. And in their prosperity, they failed to aid the poor and the needy. And her sister Gomorrah was just as guilty. So yes, there is judgment because of sexual immorality, but as we can see in this passage, there is also judgment due to the neglect of the poor. I can never overstate the concern of God for the poor and needy. His expectations that his people would take care of the needs of the poor have been woven throughout the pages of Scripture. Knowing God has, in many cases in the Old Testament, been equated with helping the poor. Helping the poor is always commended by God with a promise of blessings. Helping the poor honors God and is a form of worship. Conversely, oppressing the poor is a contempt to God. God is offended when the poor are neglected by his people. When his people neglect the poor, God may choose not to answer their prayers. Neglecting the poor goes against the very heart of God, who is loving and merciful and compassionate. If we serve God, we have no choice but to serve the poor. We cannot neglect them and claim to worship God. As we commit to always remember the poor and always be mindful of their needs, and as we make very intentional efforts to help them as we seek to honor God, always keep in mind, faith matters too.